Welcome in, everyone. Sorry I'm a little late. Had a really busy weekend. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this video at all, but I'm going to try and at least do a little something because I really like this chapter and there are actually a lot of things that I want to say about it. I may not have time to say everything about it that I want to, but there are definitely some things that I want to talk about. I'm going to try a new way of doing this. I'm going to pop that right there and we're going to do it like this. See how that works out. I was so wrong last week when I was like, oh yeah, them escaping is all that's gonna happen. I did hope. I was like, oh, fingers crossed that something is actually going on, that those mysterious figures were actually something, and it turns out they actually were something. Holy moly. So this area in Chocolate Town, it looks like ice. I'm assuming it's ice right now, and my best get is Aokiji, Kuzan. That's so good. Aokiji has only been in this story once during the time skip at the end of Punk Hazard, and he's been mentioned only like 1 or 2 times. Outside of that, we have not seen a lot of this character since Marineford, since like a decade. And even for me, who's been reading it like semi-recently, it still feels so far away that this character has done anything. So the fact that we're finally getting more of this character. I was wondering when this would happen, and I'm so glad that it's happening in this cover story. I'm so glad that more than nothing is happening in this cover story. Hopefully something that really matters, that's really important, actually starts going on in this cover story. Why is Aokiji hurting these civilians, though, is what I'm wondering. Because all these guys over here, they seem like just normal civilians, you know? They're not fighters or nothing. They're just random civilians who happen to live in Big Mom's territory. But Aokiji was a former Marine, so I would think that unless he really defected to the Blackbeard Pirates and this wasn't like some undercover job or like some inside job type stuff, like why would he be doing that to all these people? Like, especially after Ohara, because I know that he did not agree with the things he did in Ohara. I don't know how much he did. I know he killed Saul. I don't remember how much other damage he did in Ohara, but after that incident, I wouldn't have thought that he would have done stuff like this. So most of the interactions that we see with the Straw Hats when they first meet this Vegapunk character are pretty run-of-the-mill. You know, Frankie's excited to see his role model. Sanji's excited to see a woman. Usopp's excited to see a big cool robot. Who wouldn't? I'm really hoping that Frankie actually does have a good role, because right now he straight up is just called the imbecile. They call him that later. They're like, oh, those imbeciles false me into a false sense of security. So he's just like one of like the goofy characters right now. He hasn't really stepped up to the plate as an important character in this arc yet. But I really hope he just doesn't act like this the whole time. I hope that he gets more serious and has better interactions with Vegapunk, or the Vegapunks, I guess, at this point, because we find out that this is not the actual real Vegapunk. Now, last week I said it was either a robot or a clone or something that has to do with immortality. I think that from what we learned today, that's one of those things at least. So this Vegapunk right here, this girl that we met last time, is named Lilith. And people were going crazy about her little headset, but we find out later that I think all of them have the headset. Later on, we get... No, I think the other 2 Vegapunks also have... Yeah, this one's got a little headset. This one right has got a little headset too. They all got little headsets. Are all talking to each other. And that makes the Den Den Mushi sound effects... somewhere around here. Where's it says it goes like it does that. Does she got a snail on her ear? Is that what's going on? It doesn't look like that, but I guess that's the technology. So we get this really cool panel of all these giant weaponized sea beasts, as if Vegapunk isn't already super overpowered with the robot. Now we got all these sea beasts that are even bigger than the robot. It just keeps getting bigger. And right here, we got a giraffe. And then we got a wolf right here. And then we also got a bull. You know, these are all reminding me of a certain Cypher Pole. And we also got a bear over here, reminding me of Kuma. And then we got some Chopper over here. Does that mean Chopper's gonna be important? I don't know. See, what the Straw Hats should have done is that they should have put a big ol' sea bear circle around the sea bear, you know. They probably accidentally put an oval. You know, you got to get the nice sea bear circle to protect themselves against the weaponized sea bears. I'm funny. We're doing it like this. We're doing the whole thing like this. I don't care today. Oh, look at that face. I like that face. It's a cute face. Oh. All right, so throughout this whole scene, you know, Zoro's being cool by doing nothing. He didn't really do anything. He just, like, stared at him and was like, hey, I'm gonna get you. And then they're like, oh, we're gonna get me. But he says something weird over here where he's like, oh, there's something I want from you. You better play nice, got it? So people have been like, oh my gosh, what does Zoro want from Vegapunk? What does Zoro want from Vegapunk? And I would have been asking this in my video if I didn't wait and actually read the Viz chapter, because then in the Viz chapter, he says something completely different. He's like, oh, he says, we've got some demands and you're going to listen. I feel like those are two very different things. In the context of him wanting something in particular, I thought of like one or two things. One of them had something to do with Kuma, because, you know, Kuma was, after Mihawk, the toughest challenge that Zoro has done. It's the second person that he could not defeat. And he knows about him being a cyborg and stuff. So that may be something that Zoro wants to know about. The second one, which I heard a lot of other people theorizing, but I thought of it too, was about the smile fruits, because he was the one who was told about the smile fruits in the first place. How, you know, they came from the sad factories to Dressrosa, then to Wano and all that stuff. That may be something that he wants to come to Vegapunk to be like, hey, I need help with this. Can you make a cure for this? Now, this is something I probably would have liked more fleshed out in Wano. I feel like none of that was really resolved or anything in the actual Wano arc. More as if it was just like, oh, we're just gonna live with it, and that was that. There wasn't really any actual resolution to that whole smile fruit debacle. That's what makes it kind of a stretch for Zoro to care that much about. If he just started talking about it and asking for a cure now, I think it would come out of nowhere. With the Viz translation, though, where he says, we've got some demands, it sounds more like a group thing, and I think that what he would be alluding to here is just like, hey, I need you to help me find my friend, or something like that. Or maybe something to do with the road poneglyph. Probably not that much, but probably just like, oh, we need, I don't know what the whole group would want if it's not just Zoro, besides just, hey, we want safe passage, or I don't know. Now, a lot of people were saying that this person right here looks like Sora from the comics. We only saw like one small backwards glimpse of that character in the manga, but people are like, oh, it's them. I'm not 100% on that, but it would be cool to actually bring that little comic thing up. That was really only mentioned once or twice in the whole story, but if that somehow becomes important now, I think that'd be pretty cool. So the biggest reveal, though, I think, of the whole chapter is that Bonnie is the daughter of Kuma, which finally we get answers. I'm so glad. I feel like this is kind of what most people assumed all the way back in Reverie, that it was probably going to be like a father-daughter situation, but it's real good to finally know. I'm glad that Bonnie is not Kuma's mother or something like that. I'm glad that Bonnie seems to be just a 26-year-old and is not like a little girl or an old lady. You know, too many weird, dumb theories about that. Let Bonnie just be Bonnie, please, and not make it weird and creepy, please. I'm glad, though, that we're finally learning more and more about Kuma, because Kuma is such an interesting and mysterious character. One of my favorites, because the end of Thriller Bark is so cool, and he's so cool. Kuma's cool. I thought that Kuma was like one of the most powerful characters back in the day, because like we haven't actually seen anyone beat him with his paw fruit. We've seen people defeat all the pacifistas and stuff, but the actual paw fruit wielder Kuma, like he's always been a pretty good fighter. I don't know why they just let him be a slave up there in Mary Joie. Like, he could have been really useful with that fruit. That's still such a useful fruit. Now, I really like this cool big panel of Vegapunk's lab, or at least part of the lab. I'm wondering how this whole lab structure works, if this is all of Vegapunk stuff or just the specific Atlas satellite that we learn about later. But oh my goodness, all of this cool Tomorrowland stuff and the big monsters and stuff. It's super neat. It's definitely something that we haven't seen before. Oh, look at that! Zoom in! Zoom in! What's that? What's that right there? It's a Riddler trophy. Take a picture of it, Backman. We gotta find all the Riddler trophies. Vegapunk sure does like to throw his name on everything, though. It's just like, oh, Vega, 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 everywhere. He likes SSG. He sure does like to label Vegapunk on on everything he makes. I also like this hologram dragon over here because he's got a big banana on his head. And that reminds me of the banana gators from Alabasta, which is probably my favorite animal in the whole series. Alabasta had so many cool animals, but the banana gators I always thought was really cool. Like this guy. Do you think that there's a banana growing out of this hologram's head? Or do you think that there's a monster growing out of this banana? See? These are the kind of questions that we need to know, Oda. These are the kinds of questions we need to know. Now, there is this really good blink and you'll miss it little moment in the chapter where they see the giant parfait and Chopper's running over to Jinbei and he's like, oh, will you hold my hat, big man? And he's like, ugh. And then he doesn't have the Japanese hat on anymore. And then you can see right there that Jinbei now has the hat in his little shirt now. Ain't that nice? Ain't that sweet? Ain't that sweet? I hope that Chopper is more of a character. He's not just a reactionary character, because right now he's kind of either a comedic character or he's just someone in the background to react to something that Luffy or someone else does, or react to new information, but he doesn't actually he hasn't made much of a difference to the actual story going on just yet. But hopefully he does something cool and good. It isn't just a goofy little cute mascot character the entire arc. That's what I'm hoping for. Now here we finally meet the third Vegapunk, Atlas, which I almost find more interesting than the Lilith one. The stuff that she was talking about in all of this is like super interesting. I really like her design too. It reminds me of like the old school Astro Boy. Oh boy, time for the power scalers to go nuts again, because Luffy punches this little girl, and she goes, no, I don't care, and you're like, take this, and he goes, ah, right there. So, what does this all mean? One, oh, Luffy was just pulling a punch because he thought it was a hologram, obviously. Or this thing is a little stronger than we thought. My idea is that this robot, this has got to be a robot, by the way. This has got to be answering one of the questions of, are these robots, or are these cyborgs, or are these clones? Like, this is obviously a metal robot. So is Lilith also a robot? Look at all these silly billies being happy eating their food. Chopper is eating fries. Have we seen Chopper eat meat before? Well, obviously these two are eating like the burger and the shake, but he's eating the fries. And he's talking about cotton candy and cake over here. He's not talking about the steak or the hot dogs. Does Chopper eat meat? Chopper's a reindeer. I don't know. I haven't checked the consistency in this, but does Chopper eat meat? So this line from Atlas over here about there not being enough engineers or technicians to actually produce any of the cool designs that she's made, I feel like that's going to be one of the big things going on in this arc. That's going to be one of like the main issues, or one of the main talking points that Vegapunk is going to have. I'm wondering first off where everyone is, because when we first get to Vegapunk's big weird area, there's no one around. There's all these weird contraptions and machines, but no one's around besides all the satellites that we've seen. Are there other scientists on this island, or is it completely run by all of Vegapunk's creations? And is this because he only wants his own creations and satellites to be running things? Or is it because of how we just saw how there are not enough people there's not enough engineers or technicians around because of the money. I'm wondering if that's why we haven't seen any scientists yet, or if it's just because we haven't gotten far enough in the story to see anymore. But so far, we have seen no other scientists or people at all, really, on this island besides the Vegapunks. This whole thing about Atlas being able to punch holograms is also really cool. It's really imaginative. I've never really seen any work of fiction delve into this type of thing where their light gloves are able to punch holograms. It's so weird. It reminds me a little bit of Nami's Climate Attack because she's able to practically make holograms. I guess she makes mirages, but how is that any different from a hologram, really? When you think about it, it basically means the same thing, at least in the context of One Piece. But I'm stupid though, so maybe I'm just saying a bunch of crap. I have a feeling that a lot of this stuff is going to come more into the rest of the story, and it's not just like a, oh, cool, look at what you can do type thing. I think that this will be something that happens one more time in this story in a more serious matter. Also, what I'm wondering right now with this Atlas is that she's kind of okay with Bonnie and Luffy and Jinbei and Chopper just hanging out, and she's actually answering their questions. She seems way less hostile than Lilith, who I know they mentioned that Lilith is like, also has the word evil in her name, but this one also has like violence in her name. But also, why does Vegapunk not care about an intruder inside of her lab? Why does Atlas not care about that? Atlas honestly seems a little indifferent to them being around. She's not really happy that they're around, but she's not like actually angry that they're around or alarmed or is attacking them or anything. She's just like, oh, I guess I got company. I guess I'll talk to them. Now that she said that she was Vegapunk, I wonder what she's going to actually do next to Luffy and this little crew of people. It's the boy of the giant. It's my favorite giraffe boy with a long square nose. It's Kaku. It's Kaku. It's Kaku. I like Kaku. Oh, and Rob's there too. Hello, Robert. So it seems like Kaku and Lucci, CP0, are actually going to be involved in this arc, which it's about dang time because, you know, we got a little bit of them at the end of Dressrosa and a little bit of them at Reverie, but they didn't do all that much. And then they showed up in Wano and did actually nothing. They did actually nothing. You know, the other CP0 agent, he did a lot. He was very important. He did his job good, but Kaku and Lucci were not pulling their weight in Wano. So it's good to see them actually in the story, hopefully taking a larger role as the antagonist, because we find out soon that their job is to take out the Vegapunks, which is like, okay, did not expect how this is how it was going to go. I thought that Vegapunk was going to be more of the big bad in this story, but it seems like that's not going to be the case. It was always like a 50-50 chance on how good or bad Vegapunk was going to be, and if Vegapunk was going to be an actual in-game big enemy, a big obstacle that the Straw Hats had to get through, but it seems like that's not the case. Now I'm wondering if it's going to be this big three-way brawl, or if near the end of it, Vegapunk and the Straw Hats are going to eventually team up in some sort of way and help each other. I hope that's the case because I like the idea of Vegapunk, especially now with all the satellites. I think that's pretty cool. I'm hoping there's more of a team up. But also, with Vegapunk and the Straw Hats, they ain't doing nothing. Lucci and Kaku ain't doing nothing, even with the OP giraffe powers. I don't see how... I don't see Lucci winning against very many of these people. Now, I'm sure that because of, you know, just time skip shenanigans, maybe they're just going to be like, oh, I was training. Oh, I'm just stronger now. Oh, I know hockey now. Just like Crocodile, Lucci is just going to get a big level up. Is that level up going to be enough to actually fight Luffy and do anything to Luffy at this point? I don't know. I feel like if Oda was self-aware, he wouldn't do that, but I could also see Oda just being like, oh no, Lucci's stronger. He's strong enough to fight Luffy again. So I hope that's the case. But if that's the case, then who is Luffy gonna fight? Who in this scenario that we know is going to fight a powered up Gear 5th Luffy? If not the satellites in Vegapunk. Because that's the ceiling right now. It's not Lucci. It's gotta be the most useful man in the world. The most vicious man in the world over here, you know? Maybe it's the Seraphim. As we can see, you know, a lot of people were speculating that the Seraphim were going to be other warlords. This sort of confirms it. Obviously, there would be a Kuma Seraphim because there have been Kuma pacifistas, so having that upgrade makes more sense. But are we going to see more of the warlords besides these three now? Are we going to see a Doflamingo? Are we going to see a Jinbei? Or even a Law? I hope we get a Buggy Seraphim. I think that would be really entertaining, to say the least. Now, the two Seraphim that we've seen are little kids right now. The Boa Hancock one and the Mihawk one, they're still small children. This one looks a little older because we've seen what Kuma looks like as a kid, and this is way bigger. I don't know if this is a fully grown Kuma. It almost looks like a younger Kuma than we have seen, though. So my guess of why is because the Kuma ones were in line and were probably made first, just because this is the upgrade to the pacifistas. So I can see how Kuma would be the first in line to get a Seraph. So maybe this one has had more time to grow up compared to the other Seraphim so far. That's my theory. Am I going to be right about that? Do not know. Also, what do the Seraphim know? How smart are the Seraphim? Is the Seraphim turned on right now? Because Lucci is just straight up saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna go kill Vegapunk. We're gonna go kill them all. Why would they bring this Seraph back to Egghead if they're about to go take care of all the Vegapunks? Would the Seraphim immediately know, hey, Vegapunk's my creator, this one has like the master override, and I should probably help Vegapunk? Do they not know that? Have they not thought of that? Or is it definitely under the CP0's control? Is it programmed to where it is definitely under their control? Because at that point, that makes more sense. But if that's not the case, why are they bringing this back? That's only going to cause problems for you. Unless I'm missing something. Maybe it's just turned off. Maybe it can't hear what Lucci is saying. But if I were that Seraph, I'd be like, oh my gosh, they're gonna kill my daddy. We can't let them do that. Now that we have another Kuma body, though, who looks really cool with the wings, by the way. Looks pretty neato. I'm wondering if this could be the real Kuma. That somehow, some way, that the actual personality of Kuma shows up in this one more than it does the actual original Kuma body, which, as we saw a couple chapters ago, is just in complete robot servant mode. So I'm wondering, because we see that this one is like a problem child and has been a bit of a nuisance, you know? We know that, so I'm wondering if this Kuma specifically, this giant brat right here, because it's having like these issues with, you know, being a giant brat, maybe it's not listening as much because it has its own consciousness still. He doesn't know who he is anymore. He's just a living weapon now. So this Kuma right here might actually just be a living weapon now, but the new Kuma that we find down here could not. This one still may have a little bit of spark of life in him. So that would be a very interesting take, how there was like some sort of swap between that. And I wonder how Bonnie is going to respond to seeing this specific Seraph right here. This satellite stuff with Vegapunk is really, really interesting. Like, of course, we're getting more new characters. We're going to get 6 new characters, baby! After we got like 20 new characters last chapter. So we got York, we got Atlas, we got Pythagoras, we got Edison, we got Lilith, and we got Shaka. I can't wait to meet the new Vegapunks. We've met at least 2 female versions. And we may have met a male one. I wonder how the rest of them. I'm assuming that Edison is gonna be a dude, punk, but I have no idea what these are gonna look like. Are they gonna look more robotic? Are they just gonna look like dudes? And I'm wondering, most of all, what the real actual Vegapunk looks like and what his deal is. Because this whole idea of Vegapunk splitting himself up into like different aspects of himself, and all these aspects have different seeming personalities and stuff, which are a part of him. I'm still not sure how this whole thing works, how they're actually a part of him, or are they clones, or if like some of them get hurt, if that actually hurts the real Vegapunk, if it's an actual split up, or what. I don't know, man. I did mention the scientists from One Punch Man last week, but it also reminds me of the other scientist from One Punch Man that we meet before, who clones himself just to get more work done, I think. Well, no, oh my gosh, that guy, he was old, and then he somehow made himself younger, and then he made clones of himself after he became younger. There's gotta be a parallel to that too, to both of the scientists from One Punch Man. What does Dr. Vegapunk actually look like right now is what I'm wondering, because he's making a lot of cute versions of himself, but what does the actual Dr. Vegapunk look like? Is he actually just an old man, an old, Albert Einstein looking dude? My guess is that he is somehow very sickly and shriveled up and cannot move. He's probably like Zordon from the Power Rangers. Or I was really thinking of Mr. House from Fallout New Vegas, how he's just like in a computer. He just always is a computer screen, and he's just everywhere at all times. It also gets me thinking of the character Robot from Invincible, from the show Invincible, how he's always moving around in these robotic bodies, but we find out that the real body of this person is this weird, gross, shriveled up, weird fellow. So my guess is that there's going to be a similar situation with that the way that Vegapunk is going to get around and present himself as all of these satellites is so people don't know about his weird deformities. And then with that, the chapter just kind of ends. It's been a while since we've had a chapter that just ends. Throughout all of Onigashima and Wano, it feels like there's like a big cliffhanger or a big thing that happens right at the very end of every single chapter, like either a big attack or a big revelation or a big cliffhanger or something. But this time, the chapter just ends, which honestly really reminds me of when I was binging all of One Piece, to where all the chapters just like flowed really well right into the next one. Like sometimes you couldn't even tell when one chapter ended and the next one started because they just flowed so well. I feel like this is how it's gonna read in the future on reread. It's just like right when we get to this one, we're just gonna go straight to the next one. But with this ending, we finally have a feeling on what the rest of the arc is gonna look like, which is gonna be CP0 coming to Egghead, fighting Vegapunk, and the Straw Hats somehow being in the middle of it. How are they gonna make an impact on this upcoming battle? Oh, we will find out soon. All right, and that is it. We got another new chapter. I'll try and get this other chapter out again. I'll see if y'all like this format I have with the split screen and that. Maybe this will be able to make me get these out faster. This is gonna come out obviously a little late because I was busy. Hopefully, I'm gonna try and get the next one out on time again, or at least on Wednesdays. I may start moving these to Wednesdays just so I can get a little more time to edit them and everything, but I also want it to be more on time with when everyone else is putting their reviews and discussion things out for the chapter too. So I'll see what I can do. But thanks for anyone who watched. Thanks for everyone who watched the past videos too. Really appreciate it. Last video that I got way more views than I thought, so if we can keep this up, that would be pretty neat. That would be pretty neat. So thank y'all very much for watching. Y'all have a good one, I do declare. See y'all next chapter.